right, everybody. Welcome to another webinar here at Route Consultant, where we're focused on the bread and the grocery industry. My name is Josh Gregory. I'm the Vice President of Education here at Route Consultant. If you've never interacted with us or heard of us before, we come from the FedEx world originally, where we had decades of experience in that space running one of the largest operations. And now our goal is to help take all of that same expertise to help others enter similar logistics spaces. And we've partnered with a lot of different experts to help you get there, where ideally, as you're finding one of these spaces for the first time, we can help you understand it, accelerate your journey into the space, and avoid any mistakes that are expensive and take a long time, and help you build that roadmap to really accelerate and move quickly into these new industries. Now, if you are here live, if you're here for the first time, we will have a Q&A at the end of today where you're free to ask any questions, whether it's something that a question about what we talk about today, or a question about the industry as a whole, or anything that's going on. We're going to be here to answer it if you have those. Some of you may not be watching live. You may be watching this on YouTube later. And so if a question does come up while you're on watching it, feel free to reach out to us at info@routeconsultant.com. You're always free to send those questions into us, and we'll either respond to you, or maybe you can come to the next webinar and ask us live, because we do have these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central. Now, if you have a question while you're on here live, you can type it into the little Q&A button at the bottom of the window, and we'll be there to answer it at the end. But feel free to enter those questions at any time while I'm talking today. So before we get to the Q&A, we always like to have a little bit of content to make sure that you're getting some new knowledge on this industry. And so in the bread and the grocery industry, one of the most important things you have to do is to really plan out your day and plan out all of your stops to make sure that you are operating as efficiently as you can be. Optimizing those routes and those deliveries are going to help you boost your efficiency, keep your customers and your drivers happy, and ultimately, obviously, save you money, keep you more profitable. So we want to talk through that today, the strategies to employ and what that process looks like. And so we've got Stephen Ryan on to help with this conversation. If you haven't met him yet, if you haven't been on these webinars, Stephen is an expert in the bread space. He's a current operator with over a decade of experience. He's worked with a bunch of different bakeries, he's owned his own routes, and grown in this space where he has the ability to be off the truck and helping on things like this with us. And if you enter the space, helping you kind of find your way, make the right decisions, and operate efficiently. So Stephen, you can go ahead and jump on and say hello to everybody.
Well, thank you, Josh, and everyone else. It's great to be with you.
And it's good to have you, Stephen. So we're talking route optimization today. Now, let's kind of just start easy and high level. How do you decide how to route your stops for the day? And I guess also, what does that process look like for you in the mornings?
Sure. Yeah, that can look a lot of different ways. So kind of the overarching thought process here is you have to first start with the route that you're running. So as a general rule of thumb, say a route, a cookie route or a cracker route has a store that's doing $2,500 a week in sales. That's going to look a whole lot different than, say, a store that does $2,500 a week in bread sales. So there's some other factors that kind of go into running your route and the pressures that are going to be on you coming out of holidays, coming out of the weekends, rolling into the weekend. And so understanding that is a great starting point as you begin to look at different operations and decide what's best for you. So starting, with the basics, I would look at my 52-week sales numbers. I would look at all my stores, and I would really list those out, from largest to smallest. Get all your addresses, get your depot locations, plug all that into Google Maps, find your most efficient way to run, and then start to think through door times and how long it's going to take me to service the store. How long is it going to take me to load the truck? If I run the most efficiently as possible geographically, can I still meet the expectations of the retailers? Can I serve my customers well? And do it in a way that is most efficient for me as a business. If I can't do that, I would always tend to lean sales versus efficiency. So as long as I can service the customer better, even if I have to go back and forth, maybe I drive an extra 20 miles a day, that's always going to serve you better in the long run than trying to run as efficiently as possible, but maybe not getting to a really important store on a Monday or later on in the day.
Okay, so priority for you starts kind of at the store level. Now, you also said, you get the door times and have that kind of impact when you get there. How do you know those door times?
So a DM is going to be a great point of reference. Start with the previous owner. You can get a lot of data from him, find out how he's running, find out, what days he's going to stores, when he's getting there. Ask if you can get in the front door maybe before receiving opens. When I first started my bread route, I used to go to a Walmart and I would go in the front door to see what I needed. I would pull all my stock and I would be at the back door waiting for that receiver to come check me in when she opened at 5 o'clock. So that was a way for me to kind of get a head start on my day and start a little earlier than I might be able to otherwise. And as you learn your route, you'll be able to find those efficiencies. You're going to get faster with your hands. You're going to pick orders quicker. You're going to know what stores sell what better. And you're really just going to gain efficiency with time.
Okay, so your depot manager, your DM, they can help with that. Like how have you found that they're always a good resource or it varies?
It can vary, but we're all in this business together. So the new owner coming in, the new route owner, they're going to want to make sure that you have the pieces that you need to succeed. And so if you have any questions about door times or when you need to be in and out of a store, that's a great starting point. Of course, you can always go to the store, talk to the receiver, find out, are they often, in the store before they clock in and can let you in, or is 5 o'clock when the door opens and you can't get in before then. So those are some of the things you can think through as you're thinking about planning your day.
Okay, gotcha. And I know you kind of said that you start by laying it out on Google Maps. I know a lot of these routes do dispatch early. How much does traffic impact your routes for the day?
It can play a big impact, especially if you're driving on an interstate, if you are moving toward the city, let's say that the depot is outside of town and your route is in the city. If you're right in that flow of traffic, that can really slow you up. The other thing I would tell you to think about is school zones. So you want to try to avoid those, especially 7, 8 o'clock when buses are coming through. There's lots of traffic. If you're running late trying to get to a store, there's nothing worse than sitting behind a school bus. So think through those things. As you learn your route, you're going to figure out. I can take this side street. I can avoid this main road. I can save some time, even if it's a little longer mileage wise, simply by avoiding some main highways. I can get more efficient that way.
Okay. And did the school zones show up on Google Maps, or is that just going to be context you kind of learn?
That's a great question. I do not know that. Those are things that we've kind of just learned in our territory. But if you're new to an area, I would investigate that.
Yeah, I think that's I probably would guess that they're not. So that's going to be part of it. Like, we talk everything that you can learn from the previous owner when it comes to context and the territory. There's lots we talk about, but there's things like that that you can forget where it's just, stuff might vary a little bit day to day and during the day, and that can critically affect your efficiency, whether you can make that next stop. If you're going 15 instead of the expected, 45, 50 miles per hour, and it's a long stretch, traffic builds up, all of those things can be a big impact. Do you find that weather is a big player at all?
It can be if you're in a snowy environment, obviously safety is a big priority. So if you're driving a big truck, if you're towing a trailer, you want to make sure that you slow down. In the South, when we have snow scares, I mean, people freak out and it's bread, milk, and eggs at the grocery store. So, you can be under some pressure during these snow scares. Everyone wants to capitalize on the increased volume.
Right.
So think ahead, plan ahead. It's really hard with weather because they could forecast a whole bunch of snow and nothing could happen, or they could forecast nothing and we could get a whole lot of snow. But use your best judgment and you'll be fine.
Yeah, the nice thing in the South is regardless of if the snow comes or not, there are probably going to be a ton of people who buy a bunch of bread. So just knowing the way that those stores clear out is if there's even a chance of snow. But when it does snow, do you, obviously a lot of those stores are going to not be stocked. because, they've sold out from everybody who bought it in advance. Is there a lot of pressure from depot managers to still drive in the snow to get that inventory out?
No, you're not going to. Safety is the priority there, especially from the trucking company that delivers the product to the depot. So they're not going to send a truck if there's a chance that it's going to get stuck. Sometimes if they have the product available, if they can ship it early, they'll do that. And I'd highly encourage you, if it comes early, get it out. Maybe that means, you're going into a store at 9 o'clock at night, when they're not normally open. Find a manager. They'll check you in. They'll be so happy that you're there. You'll get so much um, you'll get so many brownie points for doing that, going above and beyond. And then the rest of the week, when the kids are home and you're playing in the snow, you know that your product's out, hopefully sold, and you're not sitting on fresh product at the depot. So if that's available, make that happen.
Yeah, so going at night is one thing. Have you ever seen a scenario where they might let you overstock or even have some additional area that you place a bunch of bread knowing that it's going to be, fly off the shelves? And even if the store has to restock the shelves, like, do they ever allow that?
Sure, if you have it in the store, especially with relationships that you have, they'll stock your product in front of someone else or in someone else's spot if it's empty. So if it's in the store, they want to sell it, so they're going to put it on the shelf and they're going to make sure that it's all gone.
Yeah, it's like what you talk about all the time. The incentives are aligned between you and the store and the bakery. Everybody wants the bread to sell and they want it to get there. And so as long as you can kind of work with people, there are options. But it is good to hear that depot managers aren't going to, aggressively be like, get out there in the snow, there's bread to sell, if safety still a priority there. So I know you kind of talked about how you schedule it and think through it from a Google Maps perspective and planning out those stops. Do you ever find that stops vary a lot day to day? That there's different kinds of things that can affect when you prioritize certain stops in the day?
Sure. Yeah. Kind of going back to what we started with, thinking sales versus efficiency. As you learn your route, you're going to find, oh, I'm really short here, or oh goodness, I'm really heavy here. And as you figure that out, um, you may go to a store that you wouldn't otherwise because you were low on product. You adjusted an order for a later day, and you're going to get it in the store, bright and early, 5 o'clock. Or, I'm overstocked here. I'm going to go after receiving hours. I'm going to work my back stock because I know I'm heavy and I'm going to prioritize another store. That doesn't happen often, but these are things that kind of go into the ebbs and flows of running a bread route that you need to be aware of. And as a business owner, when you think this way, you're going to be more profitable because your overall market is going to be in a better position more often.
Yeah, and it comes back to, you can do it where you're there on, maybe you say Monday's where I deliver here, and regardless of how much I sell, fine, that's when I come, and make it really predictable. But you're missing out on a lot of opportunity, both in terms of, if it's a store that moves pretty quickly and you're not making sure that your shelves are stocked regularly enough during the week, you're losing goodwill with the managers and you're missing out on sales. So there's a lot that can come in here where if you are more regularly checking in on your stores and merchandising and kind of playing that into your routes and how you're ordering and restocking, that it's not just a micromanagement thing. It's a way that you're continuing to cement your relationships with these stores and with the bakeries. And obviously, at the end of the day, every time you're selling bread, you're making more money. And so that's the name of the game, is how do I efficiently continue to reach these stores, stock these shelves, and make sure that there's always product available. Because at the end of the day, I'm not actually the person who is in the store, selling the bread or displaying it. I just got to make sure that the product gets there the right time.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The customer is brought to you. And if you're running an A/B schedule, if you're going to, half your route on Monday and half on Tuesday, especially when you're starting out, I would encourage you to go to those B stops in the afternoon on Monday, check inventory levels, pull up, make it look good. If it's blown out, you're going to have to start changing how you run your operation because you can't leave stores empty coming out of the weekend. Same thing going into the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon. When you first start, if you're using a merchandiser, always have them send pictures so you can kind of know what that inventory level is and that you can, operate as profitable as possible.
Yeah. And so, rule of thumb for you, how often do you typically go into stores, for merchandising purposes and checking on things?
I try to be in stores at least 4 times a week. So again, that could be making a delivery, that could be merchandising, that could be talking to managers. At this point in our operation, we have some drivers that kind of manage the day-to-days, but I like to be there to make sure I'm involved, to make sure that the guys know that I'm there to, keep them accountable, but also to be, the face of the operation, to the managers and make sure they know that there's a team here that, you know, there's an opportunity for us to grow together. And so when they see that you more frequently, they're going to be more apt to giving you more displays.
Yeah, I think that's really important is, if you inherit, let's say you're purchasing a business that already has somebody in place, maybe that's not as much of something that you have to own all of those relationships yourself. But for the most part, when you're coming into one of these, you're gonna want to spend some time getting to know the depot manager and your store managers, especially at your biggest stores, the ones that you might see the most opportunity to grow in. And so it is well worth your time. It doesn't even have to be a long amount of time in every store, but it is worth just making sure they have a face and that you're there. Now, do you use any kind of software, or is it all just like, what does that kind of communication of the stops look like between you and your drivers?
Yeah, when we first started, we used this was back in the day where we used, printout maps. And so don't get offline there, but uh, you can use Waze if you're worried about traffic. If you're in a tight area where there's lots of people, Waze is a great way to avoid traffic. Once you learn your market, once you learn the side streets, once you know don't go down this road because there's a train overpass and my truck can't fit underneath that bridge. There's an area like that in our territory. You really know where you need to go, and you don't often need GPS. But for a new driver, I would encourage you to offer that to them. Give them drop pins, give them addresses so that they can run efficiently.
Yeah. And I think that's completely right. There is software in the space if people are interested in having route optimization type softwares where, maybe it's a centralized location where you can put that note that, hey, this is a bridge you can't drive under, or don't turn down this road. And that will be more important the larger you get. If you get to a point where you want to have more drivers coming in, more of a rotation, then it might make more sense to have some of that route optimization type software, because new drivers means that they don't automatically know all the context and all the history of the territory. And so that can help to provide both turn by turn directions and give you that context on the territory if you decide that's the right fit for you. The closer to the ground you are, the less impactful that will be. But it's one of those decisions you can make when you're trying to decide the right fit for your business. Now, in a perfect world, you set this route and nothing changes, but are there ever any scenarios where during the day or maybe even right before dispatch, you found something out and have to adjust quickly? And what does that look like?
Sure, certainly, we've talked about trucks breaking down, communicate with your managers. You're going to have to either transfer product onto a U-Haul, or if the truck just isn't starting, you're going to need to go get a truck so that you can load efficiently. Beyond that, there's some variables that may play into this. Inventory levels, we talked about that, holidays, promotions. If I have some blowout promotion, a special event that's going on at a certain retailer, I might go to them, first rather than third on any given day. But that is really kind of subjective to what's going on in your market and understanding where you need to be and why you need to be there.
Yeah, gotcha. And it's kind of a part of that same question, but we've talked about it previously. In a perfect world, what types of stops will you prioritize in a day, and which ones are the ones that very comfortably you can leave to be the last ones?
Yeah, so starting with, looking at your weekly sales, your 52-week numbers, most likely it's going to be your super centers that are driving the most volume. And so getting there early is going to be important. But that doesn't mean that the others are any less important. That just means that you can kind of work your day starting with your biggest stores. Obviously, your C stores, your restaurants, those are going to be at the end of the afternoon as you're finishing. Your independent grocers, if you have food trucks or places like that usually are only open, starting at 11 for lunch or early dinner. Those are going to be later on in your day.
Yeah, and those C-level stores, they also don't ever push as much volume. So you're not as much of a worry of like, oh, they're gonna be, I've got to be there every single day or they're gonna run out of bread. It's like you've got some time on most of those. And it's not nearly as big of a hit to have a little bit of damage on that relationship versus Walmart being upset with you. So there's a lot of that too. If you have to prioritize, if something happens, if let's say a truck goes down or a driver has to leave early and you have to choose between those, you prioritize the ones that are moving the most volume, that the relationships matter the most. So I kind of as a last thought process here, we're talking about route optimization. What happens, what's like the maximum amount of volume or number of stops that you would ever put on a truck, and how do you decide that?
Starting with volume, I think, if you can do 3,500, $4,000 a day, that's getting it done. That's a lot of volume. That's a lot to push. But it also depends on what type of volume. Is this individual single serve, 99 cent, units, or is this, 9.99 bulk packs at Walmart? Those are going to look a lot different. So how many units are you moving, and how quickly can you get that done? But as you grow, you're going to get a good understanding of how long it takes you to service a store. And you just don't want to fall behind. So always plan ahead, always try to be out ahead of it. You don't want empty shelves. So think about your weekends as you're moving into that. I think 6, 8 stops a day is a reasonable expectation. Some may have a lot more, some may have, less. I know some markets in Texas where, Mission guys only have one store because that business is just there, and they spend half the day just packing out at Walmart. That's going to be very different than if you're in Spokane and you're delivering crackers. So understanding your areas is really critical in planning your day and knowing how much to expect out of yourself or your drivers.
Yeah, okay. That's helpful, I think, of at least what's been the process for you of 6 to 8 stops, knowing that there can be obviously different types of routes and products that will look different, but I think it's a helpful metric. Now, obviously, you're always ordering and trying to fill the truck. When you're thinking about adding another route or splitting a route, do you wait until a truck is completely full and tapped out on the day, or is there some kind of point where you're like, okay, I have reached the point where I'm at 70% capacity and now I got to add another route? Like, what's the thought process there?
Yeah, so these are the good problems we like to have, right? I think I would start with looking at, is this a one-off? Do we have, a crazy promotion that we didn't have years past? And so my truck is overflowing. I have to go back to the depot to collect what I couldn't fit on the truck. Is this a one-off, or is this a routine issue that I'm having where I just don't have enough room on my truck? And so at that point, I need to start thinking, can I either move to a new vehicle, or should I start splitting this route? So looking at your store conditions is kind of the starting point. And so am I missing stops on Monday because I just can't, I'm out of stock, or, can I not fit it on my truck? And so I'm not able to get enough product to those stores on Monday just because of the truck issue. So think creatively, as an owner, you can bring a lot to this business if you just kind of keep your eyes open and think how you can have an impact on business.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and exactly like you said, that's the problems we want to have. Those are the problems we're working to create, where we have to split the routes, add additional routes, where we've gotten to the point where we're growing and continuing to expand. But I think that's the right thought process, especially you don't want to just be like, this is a great day, I'm going to add a route and add a driver. And it turns out it was just a blip on your radar. And now you're paying 2 people to deliver 2 half routes. You want to really make sure that that's consistent volume and that you've got something to justify that second driver. Perfect. Well, that's really what I wanted to focus on when it comes to route optimization. We're going to get to Q&A in just a second. So I see a couple in already, but if anybody has any more, feel free to type them in. We do have a new listing this week out of Northern Kentucky. This is 4 active accounts at $145,000, 900 is what it's selling for. And it's one route doing about $9,200 a week. And doing close to 500K in annual revenue. They've had it for a little over 3 years, and they've grown it and are ready to exit. So if you're in that Northern Kentucky area, this is a good fit for you. Feel free to reach out to us. You can always use info@routeconsultant.com to just read that out to us generally, or we have direct listings on our website where you can go in and click on that listing and get all the details. So for the Q&A, I do see a question that's come in on how do I get started or buy into a bread route? And there's lots of things that I can kind of go through as options here. I will also tell you, we have a free 101 on our website. So if you're looking for kind of the highest level, that's where I'd start with that 101 course. But entry can look a few different ways. Typically, though, people are buying these existing listings either from a company like us. We have a ton of listings that you can purchase from, or maybe you're working directly with someone who's selling their business. But the nice thing about this space, one, the entry points are typically pretty low, and two, from a financing perspective, it's less about working with the bank and more that these bakeries will actually finance the purchases themselves. So you're buying from Pepperidge Farms is doing the financing. So it's actually pretty easy, easy relatively to a lot of other industries to secure the funding because you're working directly with the company that is providing those goods, and they are financing the purchase of these routes because they need someone to deliver these products. And so they will work directly with you in that process. And it's a fairly streamlined process where you're presenting a business plan and kind of giving your background, and then they approve you. But if you're working with us, we'll help you through all of those steps, both in getting set up, getting approved. There's lots of ways that we can help you through that process. And afterwards, we work with a lot of people who they come to us because they're already an operator trying to figure out how to be more efficient, how to, save their bottom line, areas that they feel like they might be losing money, or maybe they're just trying to figure out how to expand. So, like I said, I would tell you, if you are interested in just kind of learning and solidifying your learning, there's that 101. We also do in-person summits that are designed as ways for us to give you a crash course and teach you a bunch of stuff about the space to help you feel comfortable, but also have you in person in our workshops in Nashville, where you can come meet my team, you can meet Steven and see listings, get your questions answered, find out about, if this really is the right space for you. That is our goal in those summits. Is if it's the right space for you, fantastic. We'll help you move forward as quickly as you want to. If it's not, then also fantastic. We saved you time and money by figuring out it's the wrong space for you instead of finding that out a couple of years from now. So if that's kind of how I would tell you to think about it, if you're still evaluating it, and we'll always be here on these webinars to help provide at least a place for you to come and ask more questions as you're trying to figure it out. And again, info@routeconsultant.com is the easiest way to reach out and get any of those other questions you have answered. I will say too, if on the off chance anyone is considering a new investor summit, we do have one on Friday. So you get 2 days. If you did want to move that quickly, it's in our offices in Nashville. So that would be very quick, but happy to help if you do want to come in on that date. If not, we also have one in June. So that might be a little more achievable for some of you who are trying to make that decision. Other than that, I wanted to thank Steven and everyone who was on here today. I'm not seeing any more questions, so I'll go ahead and end it there. Steven, again, thank you so much for being here, for providing your expertise and helping us think through these things in the industry.
Hey, my pleasure. It was great to be here, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.